time. I've been thinking about it. I've been talking about it. It's tier list day. Strap yourselves in. This is the big one. This is the long one. We might be here a while, but recently, as you may have noticed, my videos have been I've been on this crusade. I've been calling it, where I want to try every single animal in the game, give them a fair shake, and decide for myself whether I think they're good or not. I want to see their performance firsthand before I pass too harsh of a judgment. Now, I haven't done this for every animal. I haven't done this for close to every animal. But as I was playing the other day, I was trying to decide, would this count? Is this an animal that is considered bad? So rather go by someone else's standards, I decided let's do the tier list version 1, so I have something to reference when figuring out, do I consider this animal good? Do I consider this animal bad? Where are they in the tier list? So we got the classic S, A, B, C, D, F. I'm not gonna define them more than that. I've seen some people do that. Like they'll say S, this is the best standalone, you buy it every time. And of course those animals are the best. But I think there's S tier animals that can still depend on other animals or styles of gameplay. That can still be S tier. Just because, I mean, if you try to build a team of non-synergistic animals every time and you're just going for pure stats, well, you're not going to do very well. So I don't think that needing synergy is necessarily a bad thing, and I'm not going to dock an animal for needing that. It just seems silly to me. So we'll break it down as we want to. S is going to be, I take it just about every time on curve. Let's get started. For example, Ant is an S tier. I think we all saw this coming. Ant is consistently one of the best tier 1 units. It's because turn 1, turn 2, I take it just about every single time. The only way I'm not taking it is turn 2 if I already have 5 fish or a bunch of horses and crickets or something. It takes a lot for me to not use Ant. So, but S tier doesn't mean I take it every single time I see it. If I see it turn 12, I'm almost never going to buy an Ant. It's about when they show up for you. You can't just, you can't grade tier 1 and tier 5 units on the same scale. It's just not fair. So Ant is S, and I might be doing some jockeying around as we go, but this initially, so we're going to go tier by tier. Beaver. Initially, I'm going to say C. I think I'll revisit after I finish each tier. I'm going to say C. I'm not super mad about buying a beaver, but I'd rather just have a 2-3 or something with an ability that's going to help me out a little bit. For example, Mosquito is 2-2, but it then also hits someone on the other team, which is going to put it above the beaver in A or maybe B. Mosquito's good against anyone who's playing ants, playing pigs, playing birds. Really, just one health animals. It also can be the difference, it's a 2-2. A lot of people play 2-3s. If it can hit the unit that it's going to attack and make it a 2-2, well, then they trade. But strictly, I think it's worse than a 2-2 or a 2-3. I'll keep it in B for now, but it might be A. Cricket is tough because in standard pack, I want to say it's A because of horse. We'll do horse and cricket together. It's one of the best starts you can get in the standard pack. In expansion pack 1, no horse, which means cricket's worse. So horse, I'm going to keep horse A. Cricket, due to its performance in the expansion pack, It'll go down to about B, I'll say. But Cricket Horse, if you're playing free to play, is like the best start in the game. Otter, A. Permanent buffs early on. What more do I have to say? It's phenomenal. You buy it, you sell it later. No one's making their otter stick around. You're fine just easily buying it. You have no trouble getting rid of it. It just gives you some early stats that can propel you towards wins that other players are not going to have. And I think it being a 1-2 rather than just like a 1-1 is more significant than you'd think. Sloth, like, for those of you who don't know, Sloth shows up like 1 in like 1,000 games. I don't know the stats on it, but I've never seen one. A lot of people have never seen one. It's a 1-1 that does nothing. So by that definition, it's F tier. But by the same definition, I would buy it every single time I see it. So I'm going to put it in S, I guess. It really doesn't belong on the list whatsoever. Because how could you possibly rate it? It's like an Easter egg. But if I guarantee if I see a sloth, I'm going to buy it. So I guess it'll be S tier. Pig. The only thing saving Pig from F, because it's bad. 3-1 is just terrible. The extra gold helps it like a little bit. But it might sneak its way up into C for its synergistic reasons. If you want to run a shrimp build, if you want to run a dragon build, if you want to run a dog build, anything that wants you to buy and sell units, a chicken. Pig, it instantly becomes the supreme option for those builds because it essentially only costs you 1 gold. You buy it, you sell it right back, you're only 1 gold in the hole. Early game, it's F. But its synergy, I believe, can put it on the level of Beaver. Bluebird, I'm going to put C. I've had a level 3, a level 3 win with the Bluebird. I have the ribbon and the achievements. But I got level 3 Bluebird, I'm like turn 3. Like, we found it right away. Finding the right units with it, phenomenal. In that run, I got a rooster with it, put it in the back. It went really well. In your average game, I almost never really consider buying Bluebird. Again, it's a permanent buff, but just 1 attack. I think the upside on it is high, but consistently, I just don't think I trust it. I don't buy it enough. Beetle, 2-3, I think is enough just to get you into A tier. And the fact that it enables the back to build, which is one of my favorite ways to play the game, is really, really moves it up the ranks for me. But just having 2-3 in stats is phenomenal. And by that same metric, the fish is S. Because the fish is the 2-3 plus if you can like time it right and get like your right animals out. Like let's say the dream scenario, you find 2 fish, so you have 2-2-3s on the board, and then eventually like turn 3 you combine them, and then say you get a level 3 ant. The ant you get, just pick a level 3. Even like a tropical fish, like not that good, but like it's fine. Like it's got decent enough stats. You freeze you add the tropical fish to your team. Next turn, you find a fish. You combine it. You get 1-1 on 4 different units. So it's 4-4 with the stats. It's just, the stats are amazing. If you can time it right, you're like almost guaranteed to win that next round if you get to it early. Fish is just phenomenal. I'll buy fish just about every time I see it in the early game. Duck is F, and that's all I have to say about that. I have no way of proving it. I have no way of knowing for sure that it's true myself. But in my heart of hearts, I know it to be true that I've never bought Duck, not one time. It's awful. I know it's awful. Eventually I will try it because I promised. I promised I'd try everything. But it's not good. It's just bad. Ladybug. S. 1-3 is tough for like round 1. But round 2, say you have 2 ladybugs out there, you buy whatever your second, your third, your fourth and fifth units are going to be, and then you like buy an apple to put on something, and you get those free stats. You're like guaranteed to win round 2. So it balances out. And Ladybug, level it up. Get it to level 2, get it to level 3, put it in a food build. It'll stick around for the entire game, and it will be on your 10-win squad. So here's our tier 1 units, unless I miss rearranging them someplace. Do I want to change anything around? I either think Mosquito has to go up or Horse has to come down. Unless I leave it exactly where it is. Because I'm trying to weigh Mosquito versus Cricket, and I think they're the same. Mosquito's way better than Cricket in expansion pack, but I'd say Cricket is better in the standard pack, and Horse has to be by definition better than Cricket, because Horse makes Cricket good, and Horse doesn't exist in a world where Cricket doesn't exist. So I'm comfortable with this where it is. No D tier, tier 1 pets, and that feels about right. So on to number 2, Hedgehog. Those who know me know, outside of perhaps back to build, that Hedgehog hurt build with a Blowfish is one of my favorite builds in the game. I'm going to give Hedgehog A. I mean, buying it early is, you can just wipe out units that if you get to it early enough, you can catch your other teams with units that have 2 or less health, and you can make sure your own team isn't suffering those same consequences. I think Hedgehog's really good, and it's getting a little bit of a bump from me for being one of my favorite, being in one of my favorite builds. Peacock, I'll call it B. It is good, don't get me wrong. It's good if you commit to it, you give it garlic, you give it some buffs. Perhaps you get a hatching chick behind it. It's very good in the mid game. I just think it falls off late game. So if you can find a way to pivot out of it, but it's hard to pivot out of it when it does require you to kind of commit to it. Starting with 1 attack isn't good enough when you're only gaining 2 on a hurt effect. So you do need to buff it pretty good. It almost requires garlic. It just requires too much maintenance to be any higher than B. Dodo, I've kind of come around to the ways of the Dodo recently. It's between B and C for me. Let me call it B. Let me call it C. It's fine. It's committing to it early is, you can have a lot of fun with Dodo, but when there's that's true for a lot of animals. Committing it to it early and getting it to early level 2, you can say these things about almost every animal, and they would be true. So that's not really big points for Dodo. Although up next is Crab, which pairs very nicely with a Dodo. Crab's A tier. You get a Crab on turn 3, turn 4 with a mushroom where you can get a 3-9, 3-10, 3-11 out there that early, get a meat on it, or even just get a garlic on it, and it will carry you for those crucial mid-round turns. Even in the late game, say it's time to get rid of your scaler. Say you ran a rabbit forever. Say you ran a penguin for a long time. That it's we're at 9 wins, or we're on lethal. It's go time. We need to win. Replace it with a Crab. It'll jump up to your 35 or your 40 health. Get a stake on it, and it's instantly a really good member of your team that you didn't have before. The versatility of that Crab gives you, I think is just really good. Badger's S. Not only is the Honey Badger strategy like gives you a lot of wins you don't really deserve. But I love the build where you put a badger at the front, you put a deer behind it, you put a mushroom on the deer. The the badger attacks, it kills like one of their really good units, it kills your deer. You don't care, it opens up the space for your deer to resummon, and it's just a really fun build to make. Badger, whether at the front or the back, is a great option for your team. If you can have at the front, if you can have anything that you don't mind dying, or at the back, just put it in the back, put a B on it, and it will almost always get you a win that you would not have won with any other animal in that position. I mean, Rat desperately needs a rework. I think we all know what's coming. It's bad. The only thing that puts it in D is like its 4 or 5 stats. Like we've all found ourselves in that situation where you have 3 gold. There's an empty spot on your team, and you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. And there's a rat there, and you're like 4 or 5 worth of stats, better than like a 2-3 or a 2-2 or whatever else is sitting out there. For one turn, be on the squad. F, I'm trying to reserve for the truly, truly terrible units. And in that same vein, I'm putting Elephant there. Elephant's terrible. I have a recent video of me trying Elephant. It it just doesn't. The only way Elephant would be good is in a hurt build, and it doesn't fit in a hurt build. There's just way better options. Some people buy it and put it in the back for its stats. It's just not worth it to me. I don't. I don't buy Elephant. I gave it a shot. Not anymore. Bat is at least A, if not S. I'll keep it in A, but the ability just you get it to like level 2, level 3, it overrides like equipment. It like is absolutely the difference between like winning and losing games. Like you get a 50-50 with melon armor, but instead now you have it's a 50-50 with weakness, and it's going against your 50-50 with melon armor. Well, that just basically won you the entire round. That is excellent. I added to a lot of my teams. The only thing taking it back is it's 1-2 worth of stats. Um, yeah, Bat, phenomenal. I have nothing more to say. Shrimp, C. I tried shrimp like the elephant. I tried shrimp recently. Shrimp was, in fact, the animal that has inspired me to make this tier list because I saw it show up in the shop and I was like, does shrimp count as a bad unit that I need to try to determine how good I think it is? Like, I think it does. People don't think shrimp's very good. I tried it. I committed to the build. I believe we ended up with like 8 wins, and I think we made a mistake or two along the way. That if we would have played a little bit more into the shrimp buying and selling mechanic, I was waiting for a lot of like beavers or owls or pigs, things that had effects when you sold them or bought them. Instead of just buying and selling and not rolling as much. If I would have committed to a little bit harder, I really think I could have got a shrimp build to um, 10 wins. And also, I didn't get it to level 2 very quickly at all. I'm definitely willing to give shrimp another chance. And I think that constitutes it making the C tier for me. Dromedary is going to be B as part of the back to build pretty much exclusively. Not quite as good as Beetle because Beetle can be independently good outside of the back to build just by providing value turn 1 or turn 2 just with its stats. Not the case for the Dromedary, but you get a good back to build going. Dromedary can contribute for sure. Tabby Cat is one I absolutely have to try. I've never really given it a fair shake. I'm not a huge fan of temporary stats. I'll throw it C. I think that's where I expect it to fall when it's said and done. But it is, yeah, I really need to try it. And perhaps after I've given all of these animals a fair shake, I'll come back and try to adjust. Flamingo, I'm keeping C. I like Flamingo. Don't get me wrong. Flamingo's a great unit to add to your team for a round or two. What people overvalue is buying Mosquito and then pilling it to give +1/1 on two different units. That's just a 4-cost salad that you can control. And you need an empty team spot to do it, and you need a pill to show up at the same time. It's just too much for me. I don't think that using using Flamingo for that is very good. I like it just as a team member, just for a round or two. If you use it in that way, I think it can be fine. It's not ever going to win you a game, but it probably won't lose it either. And that's where C tier should live. Swan is S tier. It's perhaps the best unit in the entire game. It's hard to ever credit a Swan with your win because everything it does is so passive with that passive income. But getting an early 2 Swan and just keeping it on your team for like almost the entire game, if not the entire game, it's like so good without anyone ever realizing it. Like, it does get a lot of the credit it deserves because so many people buy it, but it really, when Swan shows up on round 3, I believe I should have a 100% buy rate on it. If I don't, it was probably a misplay. Swan is so good. Just buy Swan and it will help your team. The stats on it are good too. Like 3/3, like it's just fine. And then Garlic shows up, you put Garlic on it just because you know Swan's going to be on your team for a long time. Like, it's not going to be a waste of the Garlic armor. Just an excellent unit. It hurts me to put Pufferfish in B here because obviously, like we talked about, I love the hurt build. But it truly does need the entire team to be built around it for it to be good. When that is the case, and you get a Garlic armor, and you get it a ton of stats, and you get it leveled up, it's so fun to watch it just tear through teams, kill Badgers in the back, just really mess with what the other team's trying to do. But if you just throw it out there on its own, it's just not good. Its stats are not good enough for its tier, for it to be to work on its own. Rabbit is at least A, if not S. I'll throw it in S because I'll buy it every single time if it shows up as like my level up animal on like turn 3 or 4. Rabbit plus salad is just, it's like peanut butter and jelly. You just buy it. It's a ton of stats. You get it leveled up, and it just makes all your food so much more efficient. That extra health is really just so good. Rabbit is excellent animal. Spider really should only be bought. I have no business putting it below like some of the animals in C tier, but it really should only ever be in like a summon build. And even when it is added to a summon build, you'd replace it with a sheep at the first time it's offered to you. Like, it's just not that good. Like, the dream where it like summons a sheep and then you buff it and then it dies and summons 2 rams and you buff those. It hurts to lose against. You love to see it when it happens for you, but it's just not worth it. I don't think it's just not that good. And sometimes the turtle like helps you out, but as often as the turtle or the sheep helps you out, you'll summon a badger that'll like ruin your own stuff going on. It's just not very good. It's useless to level up. It's absolutely useless to level up. Owl's B. You get an owl early enough with an empty spot, you just sell it. You don't think about it. You just take those stats and you move on. Ox is really good. Like, if I put rabbit in S tier, I have to put ox in S tier because an early Ox will just win you rounds. It just will. Committing it to a long term, I think, can sometimes be a mistake, but putting it in a summon build, putting it even in a non summon build is just so good. Like the disheartening feeling when you have like a snipe build and it like takes the melon armor off the ox like twice, but then it still gets it back before it gets to attack. So frustrating. The ox is so good. Hatching Chick is A. It's it's so good just to have that 5/5 stats for a round or two. Where people mess up is spending 6 more gold to get the permanent +2/+2. You just don't need that. You can turn that, you can use that 6 gold in way better spots. Hatching Chick's so good to like sell it, buy it back if you want those stats again later. Never even consider like leveling it up. Like getting it to like level 3 where it gives levels instead of stats is like kind of fun. It's a good way to like try to achievement hunt some animals. But what it isn't is like, well, it's just not worth it to level up. Just it's amazing as a level 1 animal. Just buy it and set it and put those stats on your best unit and watch it just like roll through most of the other team's squad. Giraffe, I'm gonna put B. It's just 1/1 passively. It's like one of the first passively buffing animals, and it just gives like solid stats. It's just very good. Like adding a giraffe to your team for a turn or two, or even for an extended period of time. It's just like solid stats on your good units. It's easy to control. You don't have to like the bluebird. Obviously, it's permanent stats like right away. But then the animal that like you're giving high attack, you have to put it in the back, which is not always where you really want it. You'd rather have it at the front. Giraffe, you can slide it around. It's very versatile. You just put it wherever you want it to be in your team's lineup. Before I was consistently getting 10 wins in Super Auto Pads, I bought Caterpillar like every time I saw it. It's still like B tier because like you will get rolled by these teams running Caterpillar, but like way too. What you don't see is the people that die before that even happens, and it's a lot of people. I guarantee you. Camel, Camel kind of stinks. Like it, kind of like Elephant. Like it belongs in a hurt build. It doesn't belong quite that low. Um, but it's just not that good. Like you need to level it up significantly and give it a ton of stats. And even then, like at best, it's giving you like an extra what, like 9/9 worth of stats, maybe, which is good, but it's not when you've pumped that much into it. I really don't think it's that strong. I think it's probably worse than giraffe. It's definitely worse than giraffe. It's worse than pufferfish. It's worse than dromedary. It's worse. I'm putting it in C. I don't really mind. Turtle's S tier, man. Early melon armor will win you several rounds. Like outside of, rather than like the flamenco where you gotta find it, you gotta pill it, and that's like 4 gold that you could have used on a salad, which is available at like pretty much the same time in the game. Turtle is giving you access to melon armor, which usually isn't available on most units until the late game when you can buy it as a food. So getting it early is absolutely worth it, and you usually have a couple of flex spots on your team at this point anyway, so you don't really mind letting it sit in front of your big unit and letting the effect happen in game until you find a pill. It's not really hurting you just sitting around for a turn or two. Tropical fish. Looking at Dodo feels out of place here. Just looking at that, Dodo belongs in B if I'm putting tropical fish in B. Again, it's just passive stats. There's not a lot of passive health going on. There's way more passive attack buffs than passive health buffs. I think you just add it between two like really strong units. Like if you have 2 units that you're pretty sure are gonna be on your team for the long run, and everything else is kind of in flex, just run a tropical fish for 2 or 3 rounds. It has fine stats to begin with, and it'll just give more attack to those units, and then you can just sell it off later or level it up and just really keep it around and let it keep feeding those stats. Snail is S tier. If you lost last turn and you bought and there's a snail available, you have to be in like the late game where your team is like set, where you're not going to do like everything in your power to find a way to buy that snail and get it on your team. +2/+2 is so much stats on your team, especially how early you can get it. Sheep is A not only because it's so good in the summon builds, it's frustratingly good in summon builds. But 6/6 worth of stats, it's a little worse because they don't come on one animal, but 6/6 worth of stats is the best available for a tier 3 animal. So it's really that simple. Dog is just bad now. It used to be good, not anymore. It takes way too much. You have to build your team around doing this, and it's just not worth it anymore. Kangaroo's A, whether you build around it and you level it up, or you just put it behind your biggest unit for a few turns. It's very good either way you play Kangaroo. Puppy, another dog that was hurt by the buff or the nerf. Having it show up as a tier 2 animal was like phenomenal. You got it, and it would get to 50/50 without needing much assistance if you just get it up to like level 2. I'm trying to decide, is it better than dog? I guess you get it like super early, but like it sucks not having like any gold to spare when leaving 3 gold. I'm putting it down here. Llama. Llama's B tier. Like if you get an early enough llama and you have like some other animals that like already can like help buff themselves, or like a worm or something that you can like focus buff it, you're completely fine running with 4 animals because those stats will just be enough to take you through a lot of teams. I just don't understand. Like, the lobster provides, it's a tier 4 animal. Pear is also tier 4, which does like the same exact thing, except it doesn't require like needing to be take up one of your precious 5 spots on your team. So I don't get it. Like lobster is just terrible. Like, I don't like ever see a situation where it's viable. I think I bought it like there's one time I bought it where I think I had like a peacock in the back to tank, and so it was like my pivot turn. So I was like selling my dromedary. I had like some spots on my team, and there was like a lobster that just happened to be there. And I'm like, you know what? Like 2 extra attack on the peacock would be kind of significant. Let me just buy it for that. Buy the peacock, sell it, and then buy something else. Rooster used to be so good. I think the nerf was the right one. Like having the chicks now have half the rooster's original attack. It's still good in summon builds, but it's not like game breaking. I'll put it in B. Hippo is A. Fitting that's next to Kangaroo, because those next to each other are a lethal combination. They're so good. Like you get an early Hippo, especially with like a monkey. Like God forbid you run up against a summon build and your Hippo just never dies. People overrate Dolphin, I think. Like it does hit your like smallest. Like it's basically just for scorpions. Like technically it can mess up like some summon builds by like hitting the thing in the back. That's like your build enabler, but it's just not enough attack. Um it's way too easy to get something over 5 health if too many people start running dolphins. It's even not that hard to get your scorpion over 6 health, or even just give it mushroom to protect it from dolphins. So I just don't think dolphins is actually that good. It's fine as like it feels good if you have like a 50-50 and you like snipe the mosquito, it's fine. But I really don't appreciate the dolphin that much. Skunk's S tier. It's up there with the swan is like one of the best animals in the game. Just messing with what the other player is trying to do is so good. It is crazy how good. I have a video about it. I'll add the skunk to every single build. Just taking the most powerful unit on the other team, just being like, "Wow, you're actually super easy to kill now." Amazing. I love having bat skunk builds. That's just like your team was good, but not really so much anymore. Goat's not that good. I have to give Goat a fair chance. I kind of tried recently, but we were already the team was already kind of on the edge of going. I think we were on lethal when I bought it, so it wasn't really a fair shake. But there's very few builds where you're ever buying enough animals in a turn to really make Goat work. Parakeet is B tier. I just think it shows up early enough that you can buy one, and you're likely gonna have an animal that you can put it behind. Me specifically, it's usually gonna be like a skunk. Having two different skunk effects is so good. You can't always do it because you're not gonna find enough skunks. So having the parakeet is a great way. You put it behind a skunk. That way, once teams get powerful enough that they do have two different really big units, you can just take both of them down. I have a feeling B tier is going to be quite crowded, but that's probably how it should be. Buffalo's B tier. It's not bad if you commit to like buying a lot of units, and if you buy it early enough, it starts with good enough stats at 4/4, and it'll get fairly big fairly quickly. If you commit to it, it's not the best thing to commit to, but it's good if you commit to it. Whale, I see way too many people buying whale. Man, whale isn't good. Again, what did we talk about this with? Kind of like lobster, like the fact that lobster does the same thing as an animal, but requires a space on your team. Whale does the same thing as mushroom, but requires a space on your team. The only reason it's better than lobster because it shows up way earlier than mushroom. But like whale behind deer is fine, but a mushroom on a deer way better. So hey, I don't think whale's really that good. It can be fine for like a couple turns. Like say I'm trying a deer build and I haven't really leveled it up yet, and I can run a whale for like a turn or two until I like find the better pieces of that build. I just see way too many people like eating stuff with like fine stats. Like it's ruining the stats. Like, I've seen people have like turtles that have like, I don't know, they've like eaten some buffs from like salads or something. They're like 4 or 5, and they like put the whale in front of it. It's like, yeah, you're getting kind of double melon armor here, but you just like erased like 3-4 worth of stats, which could have been significant. I just don't think it's that good. Bison's not S tier. It's A tier. It's probably the top of A tier. It's outstanding if it shows up and you get an early level 3 like tier 1 unit and you like get it as your level up. You take it and you probably will be good. But its reputation is it's above where it's at. It's overrated. And because of that overrating, people buy it way too late into the game where it's not going to have the time to actually get to the stats level to be on par with the rest of your opponents. So that's the reason it's A instead of S. Worm is B. It's very good, but you need it. You almost need to get the worm on level up. Like, talk about an animal you cannot commit to late. You have to get worm like immediately because it starts at 1/1 and like have like a pair and like garlic ready for it to go. Otherwise, it's too many turns of having like a super tiny unit on your team, especially when you're probably having to sell something with considerably better stats to add the worm to your team. Squirrel, I've kind of tried. Maybe it deserves a second chance because I haven't really got it to like level 2 and haven't had a few turns on a food build team, but it doesn't really seem that good. Penguins B for the lack of flexibility it gives you. It's great to add to a team that like already has a bunch of level 2s on it, but that team is usually made up of a lot of like tier 1 animals. So like you got like a level 2 fish and you have like a level 2 ant, say, so you add a penguin. So you're going to start buffing those animals and you're going to have pretty good stats. But you've now committed to animals that are kind of subpar, where you would have moved on from that fish or that ant anyway, because you bought, but now you will not because you bought the penguin. If you got like crazy lucky, you got like, say, an early like level 2 like ox or something, and the penguin can be buffing that. Like obviously that's phenomenal, but I think it locks you in a little too easy, and like at a time in the game where having some flexibility is very important. You want to be buying and selling probably a decent amount of, at least one spot should be in flex, if not 2. And the penguin's just not as efficient if you're buying and selling as many units. Looking at my other S tier units, I don't see how I don't put deer in it. Perhaps I'm overcrowding S tier as it's just so good. Like, committing to it, like putting it in a summon build, getting it to level 3, phenomenal. Just putting it as your front unit for like a turn or two, also phenomenal. Like, you're almost never in the wrong for buying a deer in the mid game. Monkey, I'll call A. Put it with the hippo, which it's so good with. You just put it on your team, it starts giving unbelievable stats to a front unit. But it's very small itself, and it really just leads to a front-loaded team. And if you're ahead of the curve, it's like turn 8 and you have 7 wins, and a monkey shows up and you add it, and you're really just riding one massive unit to victory. Like, it will absolutely help you do that. But if you lose one or you throw a tie in there, that one unit isn't always going to be able to carry you. So it's very, very good. It's just not quite S tier. Rhino, I'll call B. I want to make Rhino work so bad. Like, I've been begging Rhino to work. I've tried it a few times. I've been trying Rhino to work. But it isn't quite. It needs to be level 2. Like, it is very pedestrian at level 1. You got to get like an early level up on it, which is way easier said than done when it's a tier 5 unit. Crocodile, it's in vogue recently, because it kills badger. I'll keep it in B because like for every time that it kills a badger, there's just about as many times as it kills a monkey where it does absolutely nothing. Its stats are fine for a tier 5 unit. I believe it's at the 8-5. So it kind of holds its own. But if they aren't running a badger, or if they just have like a decent sized unit that's not going to die in the back, it won't. It's not really going to do anything. Seal is C tier. Too many times, the weird thing about the seal is the amount of food builds that it doesn't fit in. Like, it doesn't fit with worm, a premier food build animal. It kind of works with rabbit because it's going to get a lot of stats from the rabbit because you're going to be feeding it a lot. But the rabbit food build is sushis and salads and some pizzas where you're buffing more than one animal at once so you can have a more efficient, get more health out of the rabbit. Seal is like just getting the seal, and it can work if you like buy sushis and you just hope it hits the seal, but it's less efficient that way. So it's kind of its own food build that I don't think works as well as people think it does. Um, Shark. Shark is B. It's good. It's just not. There's better options. At summon builds. Summon builds just get too crowded. Like if you have a turkey and you have a fly, it like get this stuff going. All of a sudden, shark is like in the middle of your squad, or do you put it in the back, and then like the fly doesn't have enough animals dying for it to like actually do everything. It's just there's not always room for it in a summon build. It's good when it happens, but bacteria is like if you get level 3 turtle bacteria and you just have like some fine units, it's like game winning. Like that build is phenomenal. I'm putting it in B because it's like that's a hard build. It's the only way bacteria really works, and it doesn't that build isn't there for you very often, especially because usually when you get your first turtle, it's probably going to get pilled, so it's not always sticking around for you. Cow is S. It's if there's room on my squad, I buy it and I give my unit that most needs stats a really good amount of stats. Forget if I have like a rabbit with it. Cow is just so good. Scorpion. It's not true. Scorpion's A. It's not quite S. It's great, but like it can people do watch out for it a little bit too much for it to be S. It's too notorious. People will just put smaller stuff like a turtle in the front just to get rid of it to catch the scorpion. I used to love the poodle. Bumping it up to tier 5 really kind of killed it. It's C. There's just way better. There's way better options once you hit tier 5. Like the fact that poodle, where you have to fit this menagerie, tier 1, 2, 3, 4, and like a 6. Um, the fact that it's only going to show up like a turn or two before potentially like a T-Rex is like crazy. Like T-Rex is so much better. When it was a tier 4, it's like, wow, this is like one of the better options. Like I think it's better than Penguin, but Penguin shows up a little bit earlier. Turkey's A. Definitely A. Not quite S, but it's A. Enough, like a horse build, transition, get rid of the horse, throw the turkey in. It's just good. Turkey's just good if you're like the fact to give an animal like 3/3 just like out of combat, like the out of combat from the turkey is like just getting a little extra built, like initial boost. It's a nice little nice little perk. Chicken. I need to try to make chicken work, but until I get a build where it actually does, it's C. Eagle is A. It is also part of one of the more fun things you can do in this game, and it's hard. Don't get me wrong, it is hard to make this happen, but getting it leveled up and then getting like a mushroom on it. Like forget about it. Like you're just like summoning several like tier 6 units. Forget if you have enough time to like get it to level 3, get a mushroom on it, like pill it, and just fill your board full of like tier 6 level 3 animals. But like just adding it to your team, it's gonna like summon something with like either a good effect or good stats. Like it's just very solid. Cat is A as well. Not quite S, but you get an early cat and you just commit to food. If you already had a food build going, like, oh my gosh, cat is going to make you go nuclear. But cat's another good one to add for a turn or two. Like with cow, like if you see a cow, cat, and there's room for it, add the cow, sell the cow, buy the cat. All of a sudden you have like you're just doubling your effects, buy another food. That's a great turn in the late game that you got going for yourself. Dragon also A. Too late for S. Like it can't. Dragon's good if you find it early, but so is like most tier 6 units. Like it can't. Dragon can't save you if you're like on your downward trajectory. You have to be like still on par. Find Dragon early, add it, and it can finish you out with the stats you need, but it's not like the game changing, like crazy stats, because you need room to add the dragon, and then you also need room to have like to keep buying the tier 1 animals, and not every squad at that point has 2 empty spots. Fly is A as well. It's so good to just add to really a team. Like it's 20 worth of stats, as long as it's not sniped or anything. Um, it's just really good, but there just needs to be like room for it. Gorilla, I want to say Gorilla. I want to see like Gorilla work, but it requires a lot of attention. Honestly, it's C. It requires a ton of attention. I've tried it for a tier 6 animal. Like, the stats it comes with just aren't good enough. Like, to be able to survive a hit, like you need to get melon armor on it, and then it needs to take a hit that is like 24 or something, so it hits through the melon armor and then like activates its coconut armor. But even then, even to get it to that level, you need to buy it and then be able to give it like 10 worth of stats like quickly, which is not easy to do for a tier 6 unit. Leopard is B. It's good. It's fun, it's good. Okay, it requires a lot more. Again, it requires a ton of help. You need to give it a lot of stats, which is hard for a tier 6 unit. But I think the leopard dream is what happens more often and is better than like the gorilla dream. Like you get like a level 3 leopard and it takes out like 2 units and injures another one, especially adding with like a skunk. Like it's just fun. It's just a good time, and it is fairly good. Mammoth is also B. Not quite A. Like 2 worth of stats isn't like really that good. At the point at which you're getting it, even with a mushroom on it, 4/4 can be trivial. But it's another animal. When your other options are like, I have 3 gold left, I can buy like whatever. It's just a random assortment of animals. If Mammoth's there and it's there for 1 turn, it's like one of the best ones you can add. Go down here. Octopus. I mean, it's C. It's fun. I have a tier 3 octopus win. It's one of the most fun you can have in the game. But chasing that, you're gonna die chasing that dream 90% of the time you try to. And it's just not. It just doesn't do anything until you get it to level 3. Like it gets that like 8 worth of boost for when you level it up, but that means you just in the late game you just spent 9 gold for what like a 15/15, a 16/16 animal. Definitely better options out there. Sauropods B. It's like good in the food build, but sometimes it's too late. And with food build, you don't often really have the room for it. Like you have the rabbit or other stuff that's like it's probably best to worm because you've been concentrating all your food on one animal. But at the same time, by the time you get sauropod, your worm should be probably getting close to 50/50, and you probably don't need that much more food. But say you're running with like rabbit, you've been running rabbit food build. Your animals will be getting stats kind of across the board. All of them will have been getting these buffs, so you'll probably have to sell something with pretty good stats to add the sauropod, which sometimes isn't worth it. Snake is A for the fun levels of it. It is also good. When a snake pops off, it's phenomenal, especially get it to like level 2. Um, yeah, I'm comfortable putting it above all these B tier animals. I love a good snake build. It's just a great time, and it rather than some of the other animals, how late they show up, kind of being working against them. It kind of helps the snake because by the time you find a snake, you better have an animal that's gonna survive 2 or 3 hits. You're gonna have something big that you can just plug the snake in and put it behind. If you don't, then obviously you don't buy the snake, and you're probably not gonna survive very long in the game anyway. So the snake it's just fun to add to. Tyrannosaurus is S. It's the best scaling in the game. It just is. You can't convince me otherwise. You're spending the the best food you can get money wise is pizza because it's 4 worth of stats for 3 gold. Like let's even say it's like sushi and you have a level 3 rabbit. So you're gonna get 312 worth of stats or 15 total stats out of 3 gold. Well, the T Rex is going to do that every turn for you anyway. It's going to give you 10 worth of stats. Forget if you level it up. It's going to give you 20 worth of stats. Like it, getting it early, you have to have like a bad team to lose if you get a T Rex early. Like the stats will just put you way ahead of what anyone else is like able to access. Final animal is tiger cub. It's B. It's only as good as the animal you can put it in front of, and oftentimes the animal you put it in front of is like, if it's going to have a good effect, it probably came later in the game. If it came put later in the game, it probably doesn't have very good stats because you haven't had time to scale it. Thus, it's going to be snipe prone, and if the animal in front of the tiger gets sniped, the tiger's useless. If the tiger gets sniped, obviously the tiger's useless. And so yeah, maybe having a tiger behind the turkey is going to be great for your deer up at the front, but it also means that you have 2 pretty small animals on your team that are going to be in trouble if they run up against anything with splash damage or any sniping whatsoever. I think we're going to leave the food. Maybe the food's a different video. I'm not going to just... It's hard to compare the food to the animals. We're going to call this the definitive list. I'm kind of comfortable. It follows kind of the bell curve here. So we only have the 2 F tier animals, but just doing a quick once over, see if anything seems out of place. And I don't really think it does. I think I'm quite proud of how this list has turned out. I think this is correct. If anyone was wondering, this is the correct list. There's really no room for dispute on a single one of these animals, I wouldn't say. So if you disagree with anything, feel free to put it in the comments, and I'll tell you gladly why you're wrong. Why one of these animals should be in this tier or that tier. Just a quick overview. We just got duck lobster down here. Pretty sparse all the way at the bottom. C, this feels about right for C. Like, they're on your team, but there's definitely better options that do what they're trying to do better. B, you're fine with a lot of these. These animals will contribute on your team. A, very happy to have these. Whether it's temporary or a permanent animal, they are absolutely contributing. Above average, significantly above average. And S tier, you're going to buy it just about every time you see it, if you have room for it at the point in the game that it usually shows up. So yeah, this is my official tier list for now. Until there's an expansion or there's a stat corrections, there's balance changes. This is my definitive tier list. Thank you everybody for watching.